Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a sleep physician. And if you have insomnia, this channel is for you. Today, a question from Dev. With cognitive behavioral therapy, how many hours of sleep can you expect to get? Nice having you back here. And if it's your first time on the channel, welcome to you. For those of you watching this on the YouTube channel, you will see that I have a new microphone, which I'm very excited about. I hope it will bring some better sound quality to both the YouTube channel as well as the podcast. Now, as always, before we get to this question from Dev, whatever you hear here is not medical advice directed specifically at you, Dev, or anybody else, but rather general thoughts, general recommendations that may be helpful to you again, Dev, or to anybody else that is hearing this. That said, let's get right to this question. How many people have you seen who didn't sleep at all, but after trying CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, they're able to sleep for 7 to 8 hours? And for you who are new to the channel, cognitive behavioral therapy is a group of techniques that are meant to help you sleep better, as well as education about sleep in general and what causes insomnia. Those two things comprise cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And again, Dev is wondering, can you, or how many people have I seen in my clinic that have gone from virtually sleeping nothing at all to sleeping 7 to 8 hours? And continuing to read here, I don't sleep at all. If I do fall asleep, which is rare, I sleep for 5 hours straight. How much is CBT going to help me? First of all, very sorry to hear this, Dev. I will say that you have come further in terms of getting better than almost everybody that has insomnia, because very few people get to a point where they learn about cognitive behavioral therapy, which in my opinion clearly is the best way of getting better. It still baffles me. Like every day I see somebody in clinic that has trouble sleeping, and I ask them if they've tried or heard of CBT, and virtually everyone says, no, I never heard of that. Now, that said, let's try to answer your question here. The first thing I want to say is thank you for sending me this question, because it really gave me an insight myself here in terms of like thinking as somebody with insomnia. You have a problem, of course you want to get better, and when thinking about different strategies, different ways you could get better, you of course want to know like what to expect. If I commit to CBT, what should I be expecting? Can I reasonably get to a point where I sleep 7 or 8 hours with these techniques? So to try to answer that question, the first thing I want to say is the following. There is nothing that can produce sleep except your own sleep drive. As we are awake during the day, we build up a sleep drive, also known as a sleep debt or sleep hunger, a need for sleep. And that is really the only thing that can make us sleep. And I think that's so important to point out, because many companies or individuals try to kind of sell you things that they tell you can make you fall asleep, but nothing but your own sleep drive can make you sleep. That being said, many things can prevent you from sleeping, even if you have a good sleep drive. And some typical things are, stress, anxiety, worries, maladaptive behaviors, things like, not going to bed at the right time, staying in bed too long, perhaps getting up too late, or things like that, that often are responses to insomnia, things that we typically start doing to try to get better, but actually makes the insomnia worse. And what CBT does is that, teaches you about insomnia, and it tries to unteach. It tries for you to unlearn a lot of, bad habits that develop over time when you have insomnia. So that was kind of the first point I want to make, that there's really nothing that can make you fall asleep, but CBT and other techniques as well, such as like meditation and mindfulness techniques, and listening to calming podcasts and things like that can definitely help with removing some obstacles that are keeping you from sleep. So that was kind of one point I want to make. And the second point I want to make is the following. It's important to know that we are all different. We are all different as individuals. Some of us need to sleep, let's say, 8 hours, although those people are a minority. Most people, in fact, sleep about 6 hours. Most people estimate sleeping about 7 hours, but when you actually check how much, normal, healthy sleepers actually sleep, it's about 6 hours. And that's true for, these like pre-industrial societies in Tanzania, as well as like Hong Kong or France or whatnot. Like there's very little variation, I should say. We sleep typically about 6 hours. So keep that in mind, because you often hear that you should sleep much more than that. I don't really know where that 8-hour number comes from. I really try to get to the bottom of that one, but I do not know. And where am I going with this? Well, you, Dev, as everybody else, have a certain sleep need, and that could vary from as little as 5.5 hours in some people, up to maybe 8, maybe even more, like 8.5, 9 hours, somewhere in that span. And that potential, that need you have of, let's just say that you, Dev, need to sleep 7 hours, you should expect that with CBT you can reach that potential, like your potential, whatever that number is. And that leads me to the final kind of point I want to make here, which I also think is a very, very important one. You always hear in media that, you should get a certain number of hours. You should get 8 hours, or at least, between 7 and 9 hours. And if you don't get enough sleep, all these negative things are going to happen to you. And as we talked about a lot on this channel, that is not true. Please, if you have a chance, check out Insomnia Insight number 64, which is addressing this particular problem, the focus on quantity rather than quality. And with that in mind, I want to share that in my clinic, I see tons of people who sleep 8 or 9 or 10 hours and don't feel rested. They feel terrible, even though they get that much sleep, because the quality of sleep isn't good. And on the other, the flip side of that, I have a lot of people who tell me they sleep 5.5 hours, 6 hours, 6.5 hours, and feel great, feel rested and, refreshed. So quality, much more important than quantity. So when it comes to you, Dev, when you're looking at a way to sleep better, please consider that what you really want is good quality sleep. If you choose to go ahead with cognitive behavioral therapy, which I personally think is the best option for anyone with trouble sleeping or not, I hope that you get to a point where you sleep really, really well, no matter if that is going to be 6 hours, 7 hours, or 8 hours of good quality sleep. Thanks again for sending me that question, Dev. And if you have any more questions, or if anybody else hearing this has a question, please leave me a comment or send me an email at insomniainsight@gmail.com. I hope to have you back here very, very soon. Until then, take it easy.